So just out of the blue, you went to the crime scene, he went to the crime scene, and
Not out of the
you
blue.
observed.
He went out there, he went to destroy the body. I went to stop the body from being destroyed. In the process, he
Why?
decided to have sex with the body.
Why did you not want the body destroyed?
Because when I shot Karn, something happened to me that night. When I shot the first shot, she went out, and I shot the second gun. It was extremely dark out. It suddenly went bright light. I could see the bright light. Everything around me was lit up. I could see her pupils open up on her. I could feel her presence there. I could feel the aura, and then all of a sudden it went dark again. And I looked at him and said, and the first thing I said was, "What the hell did I just do?" I said, "Do you see that?" He says, "What?" I said, "You didn't see that." He said, "Did you see what just happened?" He says, "Yeah, he shot her." I said, "No. Something happened." Oh.
We are about to watch the Minnesota parole hearing for, frankly, a monster. Someone who's been serving a life sentence for his 1991 kidnap, essay, and murder of a woman who was really just in the wrong place at the wrong time. An 18-year-old who was out with friends and decided to walk home instead of taking a ride. Now, we all know that horrible crimes happen, but it's what they say, even all these years later, that never ceases to shock me. He will tell you today that he killed her because he wanted to know which caliber weapon would be more effective. He wanted to know what it would be like to kill someone. He never actually did any of the SAing. It was only his friend, and it was done after she was killed. We will see today someone who does not understand empathy, someone who doesn't know what remorse is, someone who, frankly, needs to be in prison for their entire life. Serious serial killer vibes here. Lucky that he did not stay free to commit more crimes. This is a horrific case. And the idea that even someone like this can be, I think this is his third chance at parole, is baffling. But, anyways, I'll go over the appeal with the details of the crime at the end of the hearing. With that, let's jump in.
Our records indicate that on June 14th, 1991, Corinne Strufer went to a Perkins restaurant in Grand Rapids with some friends. The following morning, after she did not return home, her disappearance was reported to the sheriff's office and search crews were dispatched. On June 18th of 1991, James Swanson turned himself into local law enforcement. Initially, Swanson told different stories to the investigators. Eventually, as interviews and investigations continued, James Swanson led authorities to a wooded area where Corinne Strufer was found buried in a shallow grave. During her autopsy, it was discovered that she was shot in the back of the head and in her throat. Evidence also found that she was raped. On December 17th, 1991, James Swanson was sentenced to life imprisonment in Aiken County District Court after having been found guilty of first-degree murder. He was also sentenced to 91 months for kidnapping to be served consecutive to his life sentence. James Swanson was initially reviewed by a commissioner and advisory panel on June 12th of 2018 and continued for 3 years. At his second hearing, he was continued for 5 years, but was given the option to petition for an earlier review after 3 years if he completed the directives that were given. On April 29th, 2025, James Swanson was approved for an early review hearing. Today's review represents Mr. Swanson's third review after serving approximately 34 and a half years of incarceration. His minimum parole eligibility date on his life sentence occurred on June 21st of 2021. Thank you. I turn this matter over to the board. Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Mr. Swanson. How are you today?
Oh, pretty good, sir. You?
I'm all right. Thank you. I'd like to start off by asking you to tell the board what it is you'd like to see happen as a result of today's meeting and the reason for that.
I would like to, if possible, sir, I would like to start my next sentence. I do
Go ahead.
believe it's a minimum of 5 years on the 91 months I would have to do.
Okay, so you'd like to be transitioned to your determinate sentence.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Swanson, what makes you feel you're ready for that?
Well, sir, I can't say the entire time I've been down, but since about 93, everything I've done is to better myself for society. Every program I've done, every class I've done is to make myself a better person to be out in society. I believe I've done every program possible to me that would actually benefit me.
So you feel like you are, in your view, are you rehabilitated?
Yes, sir, I would say yes. But I must check first though on that, on what you consider to be rehabilitation. To me, rehabilitation is the sitting there thinking about what did you do to do your crime, what led up to it, what was your mindset at that time, and what have you done to make sure it does not happen again?
So why don't you walk us through answers to those questions?
Yes,
Because
sir.
I think it would be interesting just to hear your view on those questions.
All right. Leading up to my crime, sir, I had no empathy for people at all. And I was extremely short-tempered and angry all the time. On the night of the crime, I had gotten an argument with my crime partner. And one of the comments I'd made to him to prove a point was the next person that comes out of Perkins will pick him up and shoot him. Which we did. Karen Stewart died that night, sir, because not only did I lack empathy, I could not control my own emotion. Did not deserve to die. But she did. It was my fault. I transferred from college to New Mexico to do my time. Well, there I had my first victim offender dialogue with Mr. Don Struford and his daughter. It was during that mediation we were doing. I referred to his daughter as a carcass. That bothered me so bad that I got to where I did not like myself anymore. Working with a psychologist in the prison there, they started working with me, and one of the things I wanted to work on was how do I better myself not to be that person. It was through dealing with the psychiatrist to discover I didn't have empathy for people. So he put me as a hospice nurse working as an infirmary aide. He made it a point to make sure I had to work with patients who were dying. I had to sit with them, take care of them, and sit with their families afterwards. After 5 years of doing that, I got empathy. It's one of the greatest gifts I think I got out of that prison system there, was the ability to actually feel other people's pain before, and I actually want to help them. Had I had that years ago, I wouldn't be here right now. But I don't think it was something I could have gotten out there, or something I had to develop in here. So that every program I've done has been taken to actually better myself, to be a better productive person in society. Every job I've had is something I can actually carry with me to the street. I've always made it a point to actually focus on what caused the problems, how do you fix them, and that's what I've done.
So what is it that you have to do to avoid problems in the future? That was one of your questions, I believe.
The questions in the future are relatively simple. Where I used to be reactive to my anger, after anger management in New Mexico, I've learned to assess. And whenever you get angry, they make you stop and assess. Why are you angry? What's causing the anger? So you no longer are reactive to things. That's been quite beneficial. It teaches you
So-
never react when you're emotionally charged. You get happy, you're mad, angry, not react. You make bad decisions.
So you've had some discipline that is in the not so distant past. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And it would seem to me that one of the challenges is really when it boils down to is that sometimes there's struggles interpersonally with other folks, with other people. Is that fair?
Oh, no, in prison, you're always gonna get inner struggles with people. That's normal. It's how you react to them.
Right. How you react to them. So how do you react to them?
Usually I avoid them. I can walk away and just let them go. I quit trying to prove myself to be right. You know, when you get in an argument with somebody, everyone wants to argue that they're right. I don't anymore. I don't care.
So what causes, so then what causes you to have these situations where you get new discipline?
Oh, well, that's all right. Open up the machine. I was working with somebody and they thought the machine was empty. I said, it's not empty. I opened the machine and picked the trays up. In the process of picking up the trays, I burnt myself. When the water hit my hand, it scolded me. When it scolded me, I put the trays down on the table and buckled up. Now, I should not have opened the hot side of the machine, but that's not what they disciplined me for. They disciplined me for reacting to being burned.
So it seems to me that so you don't believe that there are any kinds of issues or problems around patterns of social or interpersonal deficits. That does not ring true for you?
I'm not really having a problem with most people, sir. I get along with most people I deal with here. I walk around, I socialize with people. I don't get in fights. I'm not in arguments with anybody.
How do you think you would fare if you were to walk out of prison today? What would that look like?
Well, I'm going to need a support system set up because I think most areas I'd be all right in, but there's going to be certain areas that I can't even fathom yet that are going to come up. I'm going to need help with. For basic stuff, of getting a job, holding a job, housing, medical, I can take care of that myself. There are other areas I'm not really sure how I'm going to deal with. It's hard to imagine something you can't imagine, since I'm not sure what the obstacles are I'm going to run into. That's why I think it's good to have a support system set up to where someone I can at least get hold of somebody and say, how do I do this? How is this done?
So how have you, so it sounds like that's one of the areas that you need to give focus to. Have you talked to other people who you were incarcerated with who made this transition and learned about what they did or how they managed it?
None of them have made the transition yet, sir, that I've talked with. Other people that are getting out of prison all have family members still alive that are in the area, so they just go with their families. But most of the people that in my social area, the ones they haven't ever gotten out.
Okay.
To talk to them, that they have to get out and then come back in. And hopefully all the ones so far, all the ones I've talked to that got out are still doing good out there.
There has been a lot of back and forth in terms of accounts of what happened here over the course of time. I think it sounds to me like you are in a place now where you have a greater acceptance of responsibility for your involvement in the offense, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
I just would say that, and I do have concerns about, about your, about, you know, 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 community and your ability to maintain to maintain kind of connections with people. And I think how critical, as you mentioned, having that support network will be critical. Should you be released? Let me just ask this question: Do you want to be released?
Yes, sir, I do, very much so.
And if you were to imagine your best life being released, what would it look like?
Well, I'd like to be out with my family and be able to transfer back down to New Mexico with my family, be with them on what life they have left in them. That not being given, if I stay in Minnesota, I do like to get a small place in the country, have gardens, some chickens, friends coming over. Pretty much just live a quiet, relaxed life with what's left of it.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I'd open it up to other board members.
Mr. Swanson, you had mentioned that you've participated in the VOD or victim offender dialogue process. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What have you taken from that? What have you gotten out of that?
When doing the victim offender dialogue, I get to feel the pain I've caused the Struver family and others. I get to feel their perspective of it, what they went through. Instead of what I think they went through, I get to hear from them what they went through. Their loss, their the damage I did to them. And you can't really make amends, but you can try. I mean, you can't really make amends.
So you said you can try. What are ways in which you have tried?
Oh, I sit with Mr. Struber. I talk to him openly on any subject he wants to talk about. To make sure he just disclosed of everything and anything, any documentation, any forms, who I talk to, who I call on the phone, who I write to. He has the right to know all that.
Do you think there are ways beyond just that interaction, more broadly, ways in which you are able to make amends or kind of give back? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Well, we've been talking about trying to expand our circle to a larger group.
There we go.
We've been trying to get that done for a little bit now.
Who's we?
Me and Mr. Strupert.
Okay. Can you just talk a little bit more about
All right.
that?
We've been trying to get it enlarged to get more people involved in it, more larger. But so far, everything we've tried is not gone through yet. So we put the request in, but nothing's gone through yet.
Are there? So I know you mentioned Mr. Strufert and kind of the work with him, but are there other things beyond that?
Well, I've talked with other inmates in here, but most of them are terrified of doing a victim offender dialogue with their victims. And I'll try to explain to them that it's actually helpful to them. I said, people won't get closure, but they can get acceptance of what happened. But it's really limited on. First, we had the COVID situation where no groups were going. I've done the restorative justice. There I was able to speak to a lot of the guys there on what it's like to do the victim offender dialogues. And they all knew Mr. Strupert, so that was actually good.
Okay. Have you done? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Like I say, most of the inmates here though, they got a fear of doing it, of doing the victim offender dialogues.
Well, and I guess I'm referring to even more than just victim offender dialogue. Are there other ways that you can give back, make a positive difference that you would be able to articulate as a way to make amends for your crime?
That I'm not sure, sir, because I'm not sure what's open to me, what can be done or not done.
Okay. Last question for me. What have you done have you done any formal vocational training? Because I understand you went in when you were fairly young, I'm guessing. So
Yes.
like, have you done any formal vocational training since you've been incarcerated?
Yes, sir. I did.
Can you talk about that?
Yes, I did some psychology classes in New Mexico. I did a couple of computer classes there. But when I came up, I did the training down there for sewing. The garment shop, I did training in that garment shop, so I got that down. In this state here, I've done a bunch of religious training because it was my goal and hopefully in life to start my own religious center when I got out. So I went through and took all the credits to get that done. Became an ordained minister, got licensed in the state.
How will those things help you, I guess, if and when you're ultimately released? Like how will you use that to make a living, work, pay bills? How will you use those things?
On the religious center, they're usually self-supporting themselves, but before that, I find I have to get a job and actually work a living. I can work retail. I'm actually good in retail. I'm good at assembly. I've done the assembly work. I can do garment shop work. Getting a job out there is really not a worry to me, sir. Especially in today's society, nobody wants to work. I like working. The religious center, I never thought of it as for making money. That's an area I want to set up where people can come in and pray when they want to, how they want to.
Okay. All right. I appreciate your responses.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Swanson, you may have said this and I missed it. What do you hope to get out of the victim offender dialogue process?
More empathy and better understanding of what victims go through. How to work with them, how to help them, how to try to make amends.
Thank you.
Mr. Swanson, I have a question.
Is that
I'd like to hear more about the motive for the kidnapping and murder. Can you describe what was going on with you then?
Oh, yes. That night, I had gotten a bunch of ducks. We had a duck order. And I had gone through trouble catching the ducks out of the Mississippi River. Was not easy to do. And in the process, I had to dive off the dam in Grand Rapids while being chased by security with the ducks. Put it down the river. When Mr. Sullivan came to pick me up, he released the ducks, said we'd get them later. Well, we'd get them later means I get them later. And I was extremely angry about that. Now, I was always short-tempered, but that night I was really angry. And when we were sitting in the car, he was trying to calm me down, and he made a stupid comment about what was more powerful, a 25 or a 22. And I said, that does it. We'll solve this argument once and for all. I said, next person comes out, we'll just shoot him. And the next person came out was Carr, and he said, that's Carr. I said, our problem? He said, nope, fine. And because of my anger, my lack of empathy, and my wanting to prove myself right once and for all, she died. She didn't need to die.
So you got angry at the person you were hunting with. Were you hunting these ducks with a rifle?
No, you never hurt the ducks. You shine a light in their eyes and they'll sit still and you put them in a sack. These go to farmers. Farmers were buying them from us.
Okay,
If
gotcha.
you put the ducks in a chicken coop for a couple of weeks, they domesticate and then you can let them out and they'll come right back.
Okay, I didn't know that. Tell me, why did you have a gun with you?
I do not know. I never took a gun to the Mississippi River ever when I was going down there. And yet something that night propelled me to grab those two guns. I walked back, I reached over, I grabbed them. I've talked with Mr. Struford about that many times. I don't know why. I left the room. I had taken 3 steps, stopped, walked back, reached over, grabbed them, took them with me. And I've never been up here out. Why? Because I never took firearms to the river. The river's acidic. It eats stuff up like that. They weren't needed.
Was this was your victim the very first person that you saw after you
Yes.
became so angry?
Yep, that was the very first person that came out during the argument.
So you raped this victim. At what point did you decide to
No, ma'am.
rape them?
No, ma'am. She was shot. The next night, Mr. Sullivan went back and with the body. I didn't the victim. I murdered the victim.
So you're saying you murdered the victim, he was
Yes.
with you. The next night, he went back and
Had
had
the body.
body. Where were you at that time?
I had walked in, seen him,
Walked in where?
to the crime scene. He was supposed to go up and destroy the body with acid the next night. I didn't want the body destroyed. I went up to move the body. When I went up to move the body, he was having sex with that body.
So just out of the blue, you went to the crime scene, he went to the crime scene and
Not out of the
you
blue.
observed.
He went up there, he went to destroy the body. I went to stop the body from being destroyed. In the process, he
Why?
decided to have sex with the body.
Why did you not want the body destroyed?
Because when I shot Karn, something happened to me that night. When I shot the first shot, she went out, and I shot the second gun. It was extremely dark out. It suddenly went bright light. I could see bright light. Everything around me was lit up. I could see her pupils open up on her. I could feel her presence there. I could feel the aura, and then all of a sudden it went dark again. And I looked at him and said, and the first thing I said was, "What the hell did I just do?" I said, "Do you see that?" And he says, "What?" I said, "You didn't see that." He said, "Did you see what just happened?" He said, "Yeah, he shot her." I said, "No." Something happened. Oh. I had an experience there that I don't know how to explain. Something happened.
Let me go back just a minute. She was shot twice. Who fired the second shot
I fired both shots.
and why twice?
Was that, ma'am?
Why did you fire twice?
The argument was what was more powerful. That was the whole original argument, a 25 or a 22.
And you had said somewhere else that you thought that taking a life was the ultimate form of
Oh,
power.
yes. That was always a mindset of mine. I'd read that. when I
Was this in your mind at the time that you
Oh, yes.
kidnapped and murdered this young lady?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I always believed that. When I read that, the ultimate amount of power is shooting somebody or telling their life and taking it. It's not. It actually is the opposite of that. But it's one that has to be experienced.
That's all I have. Thank you.
And I was just, guys, I'll straight under, ma'am. When I went up there that night to move that body. Right. This has caused recurring nightmares for me ever since then. My crime and that second night. And I've talked with Mr. Strubert on that. We're trying to set up a deal with mental health here, where I can actually talk with mental health as Strubert at the same time, so we could go over these things. But so far it hasn't worked out.
So you killed the victim, but you don't want to be accused of raping the victim.
I didn't rape her, man. I aided and abetted by making the body.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, but I never had
that.
sex with the body.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to turn to Mr. McNeil. Thanks for being here today. Support of Mr. Swanson. I would just open the floor to you to provide whatever thoughts you have.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, board members, for having me here today as an advocate. I've been working with Mr. Swanson over the last about 2 years now, making trips up to Moose Lake every 3 or 4 months, and I'll go there and I'll meet a series of people serving life sentences that are kind of interested in getting their information and stuff together. And I've met with him pretty consistently during those times. And I will say, the person I see today versus the person I started working with 2 years ago is leaps and bounds. When I first started working with Mr. Swanson, it was hard to get him focused, hard to get him to work on a reentry plan or get his letter together. And then after about 6 months, I started to notice a shift where I'd see him actually put in effort, where he was coming up with the reentry plan for New Mexico and for Minnesota, just because, like you heard him mention, he's interested in both areas. And I really saw him start to get dialed in and have more, I guess, sound thoughts on what going into the community would look like, what it might look like to start living life again, if ever granted a release, or when a release is granted, however it works. And so I was very happy, I guess, to say that I've, at first I was a little apprehensive because it didn't seem like it was going anywhere. And then I really started to see him working on himself and investing in what release might look like, and actually thinking about, with some of the questions you've even asked today, what some of the struggles might be, what are some of his hopes and desires, how programming might be effective for him. And then obviously, as you've all heard before, because I've spoke in front of you several times now, if granted release or to get moved on to his next sentence, and when release comes down the line, I would continue to work with him with the remainder of his sentence, whether it's on this life sentence or the additional 91 months, I believe it was, or something like that, to prepare him for the community, and then helping him actually get connected to those resources and supporting him out in the community when that day comes. And I did, have a conversation with him as well, just like you all have had with the recent disciplines. I know that that's something to consider in all of this, and something that you should definitely ask questions around. So I'm glad you did, because things come up, and it's important that the person, when that happens, is able to explain what happened and have insights on why maybe they behave that way. And it appears he has, and I've spoken with him several times since he got off of some restrictions from that last discipline. And so I think that's all I have. I just really wanted to express that I've really seen a lot of motivation with Mr. Swanson in the last year and a half, with gathering all this information, getting it together, and actually starting to think about, in a logical way, what the community would look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just had one more question for Mr. Swanson. I understand you've struggled for quite a while with maybe some suicidal ideation, that sort of thing. What are you doing to manage that?
Oh, meditations. I keep telling myself, I gotta wait till my sister, as long as she's alive, I have to stay here. Can't break my word. I reached out to mental health on it. The first one I went through and talked to Miss Wolf, I just had to explain everything I was going through, and her assessment was, well, you just need to get over that, don't you? And I just got seen by mental health again here. And I've been explaining some of stuff to them, and we're starting to work now on a program to give me tools that might actually help me in those areas.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, Mr. Swanson, before the board begins deliberation and discussion on next steps, I want to briefly open the floor to you to make any final comment you'd like.
Well, let's see. I've done everything in my power I can to better myself, to make amends to Mr. Strupert and the communities. Plan to still work with Mr. Strupert in the future, hopefully. I've done everything in my power that I could, within my grasp, that I can do to make amends and better myself. I'm not sure what else there is I could do. So with that, I'll let you guys deliberate.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll close the discussion. During board discussion and deliberation, the board will not entertain questions or allow interruptions. And with that, I would open this to discussion among and between board members. I'll just start off by just saying that I have deep and significant concerns, and those concerns really stem from this whole notion of being able to envision Mr. Swanson's function in the community. And I base in part some of that on some of the challenges that he has on the inside, his apparent levels of isolation or use of isolation to avoid certain things. I think he's got many positive things. It's very clear that he is and can be, and by his own admission and his own words, he's a hard worker. But this whole notion of him talking about the fact that he can't imagine necessarily what life might be like out here. It's hard for him to envision that, and the support network that he would need. And so in my view, he's not ready to go. I struggle with how long and what. But if he can't use the gift of imagination to kind of envision what life can or should be when he gets out, and what would be necessary for him to accomplish that in a safe sort of manner, it's just impossible for me to support even step down at this stage of the game. So that's where I'm at. I would like to hear from others in terms of where they're at before, I would certainly be willing to offer a motion, but I'd just be interested to see where others are at.
I struggle with the inconsistencies in his accounts over the course of time. They just have varied. They've been all over the place. I think there's 5 of them now. And it seems to me that points to a lack of accountability, responsibility, and understanding. And when I hear Mr. Swanson talk about things he's done to develop empathy, they're external things. They're becoming involved with hospice. That's something somebody can see. They're even meeting with Don Stuford, but they don't reflect, in my view, an earnestness or a depth of understanding on his part of the harm he has caused and what went into him to cause such a heinous crime. So I'm having a real struggle with seeing responsibility, accountability, and consistency.
And I would kind of echo that as well. Even the closing statement, if I'm being honest, somewhat fell short by saying like I've done everything that I could do. Well, it's not a start and finish scenario. It is something that needs to be ongoing and lifelong. We can provide directives and things we'd like to see, but some of that needs to be internal, and it's that internal piece that I'm not certain about.
I think he intellectualizes the whole thing. And I was struggling with how long to continue. And, is 3 years too long? Should it be 2 years? I think he needs behavioral health intervention. And, the psych report.
You grab the mic. Just,
Oh, sorry. The psych report did mention trauma-informed. I can't remember the term she used. She didn't say he shows that diagnostically, but it's pretty close. I wondered if that would make a difference to, if that could help him sort of become a little more empathetic. But regardless, I would like to see a strong mandate for behavioral health.
I think what you might be referring to is her suggestion or inference that medication would be important, and his rejecting that and saying do hypnotherapy. It wasn't clear whether it was on the outside or inside. Is that the part that you're referring to?
I was just reading that whole psych
Yeah.
thing, and the psychologist said in there, I can't give him it was something to the effect of I wouldn't diagnose him, or he doesn't meet the criteria, but.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, especially after listening, I thought maybe something that would help him get out of his head and get to his emotions a little bit more. All for the purpose of being successful when he gets out, because I don't see how he could be right now.
I see him as being way too dangerous. If this is how he reacted to anger, if that really was a part of the motive, then he needs a lot more work on anger management. And I'm not talking about just the tray throwing incident. To be motivated by anger to commit a horrible crime like this is incomprehensible. And I don't see that he's done anything to really address the anger or to be consistent in terms of how he recounts the offense. There were many different narratives in the file and evidence of things he's pretty much denying now. So I think he needs to be continued for 5 years and then reassessed after he does work on anger management, behavioral health, whatever can be done to address his emotional state.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second it.
So there's a motion and a second, deny parole with a 5-year continuance. And the elements that were raised here. Other thoughts?
I guess my only thought is, would we consider 3 years just to try to help motivate, perhaps? But I'm not so tied to that.
What if it was a 5 with a 3-year off ramp? But what would be the hook? What would this board want to see by way of work effort or planning in order to even allow that to happen? Because I don't just to have it for the sake of having it, I think is, but if it's, I hear what you're saying, that, we don't want them to wait until year 4 to work on this stuff.
It is helpful in scenarios such as those that you be very clear about what the expectation is in order to grant that, because when it's make progress, that's so hard to see if there's enough there or not in certain circumstances. So if you want to do that, I ask that you consider more clear expectations.
All right, I'm not hearing a lot there, so we have a motion and we have a second. To the motion, Board Member Bray,
Yes.
Board Member Earhart,
Yes.
Board Member Larson,
Yes.
Board Member Ramstead,
Yes.
and Schnell votes yes. Mr. Swanson, your parole is denied. You've been continued for a period of 5 years with the expectations as laid out, behavioral health, working on that release plan, remaining discipline-free. I just, one of the things that I'm struck with here is you know, during the meeting you had with the psychologist, you described yourself as being, quote, outside the circle of most social groups. And there's, in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. And yet we live in a world that it's hard to be outside the circle entirely. And therefore you're going to have connections with people, and that can become a challenge. And so I think, I say that because I think that's, you know, one of those areas that, you know, this broadening of engagement and being an active participant in the community, in a true active participant in the community, even inside a prison, can be worthwhile. And with that, I would wish you good luck. We will send you a letter describing all of the requirements. Any questions?
Gotta unmute.
Mr.
Mr. Swanson, we can't hear you.
We have to be unmuted on your side.
Oh, yes, I was saying, sir, on the thinking disorder or the outside the circle, it was the psychologist that just did the interview of me, pointed out the fact in there that it's a schizoid. My thinking disorder is different than most people's. It's not unusual. It's just different. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm very functional. I'm able to work with people on the outside and everywhere else. I just don't think the same way as everybody else. And she put that in her report.
Okay.
It's an extremely normal thinking pattern. I'm able to function. I've always functioned fine out there.
Well, you didn't function always fine out there because you're sitting in prison serving a life sentence for killing a young woman. So
Well, I'm talking about
I'm not going to
working out.
argue that with you. I'm not going to argue this with you. I just want to point that out. So I wish you well, and we will get you a letter that describes all the requirements. Thank you.
Yep, sir.
And for anybody who just needs to see this, who needs to see what a murderer, a cold, empatheticless, sociopathic, I'm not diagnosing anyone, I'm just speculating in a situation like this, person is, this is it. This is the hearing that you can show them. And for all of those bleeding hearts who like want to, I don't know, virtue signal and say, sending someone to prison for so long, what's wrong with you, America's prison system? It's just watch this. Just watch this hearing. And then, you know, I'll go over the facts of the case because I think that's what's most interesting. I think a lot are curious, like what happened. And there is an appeal, so I can go over it with y'all. But let's be real. I mean, there are so many things there's just the creepy factor, exceedingly creepy, as Dr. Grande would say, is so it's like the way he talks about it, it's like he was there and reliving it and enjoying it. Like you don't know what it's like to kill someone. I just wanted to know what caliber was stronger. Oh, I did an essay. Like it, it's just scary. The guy still has like a scare factor. Can you imagine if he got his way and he went to a little farm in the countryside? When he said that, I was literally envisioning him having pigs and feeding the, you know, his victims to his pigs. Like insane serial killer stuff. And one has to assume there are always victims, but Minnesota, for whatever reason, they don't like the victim to speak. They don't let the victim speak. You know, they'll have the advocate. The advocate always has the bear goggles, the butterflies, the not bear goggles. It's the rainbow and butterfly goggles on. Ooh, it's like, yeah, move into your house. So let's see how long he lasts. So he wants to feel what it's like to kill someone again. It really is nuts. I've known him for 2 years. Release him. You're crazy. People are crazy. So let's go. Okay, let's go. And yeah, I don't know where the victim, you know, it's Minnesota. This is one thing Minnesota does really wrong is you don't hear from victims, you don't have victim impact statements, you don't have DAs, you don't. Although we have had DAs show up a few times, it's confusing to me. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's like, um, he destroyed so many worlds with this. And he just the way he talks, it's like there's nothing. It's like On July 3rd, 1991, Aiken County Grand Jury returned a 5-count indictment charging the defendant James Shane Swanson with the following offenses in connection to the kidnapping, essay, and murder of Karen Strufer on June 15th, 1991 in Ithaca, Antioch. 1 count of first-degree premeditated murder, 3 counts of first-degree felony murder, 1 count of kidnapping. Prior to the trial, venue was transferred to a different county. On December 14th, 1991, Beltrami County jury returned a verdict of guilty on all charges, and on December 17th, 1991, the defendant was sentenced to life imprisonment for the first-degree murder conviction and consecutive sentences of 91 months for kidnapping. The defendant appealed this, blah, blah, blah. Life just doesn't mean life. In some states it could mean life, but it like never meant life here. Here was what, 21 years to life? On June 14, 1991, Karen Strufert, an 18-year-old college student, went to Perkins Restaurant in Grand Rapids with some friends between 12:30 and 1 a.m. Around 2:45, Strufert departed. Although another friend offered her a ride, she decided to walk. And this is just like, it's like, it's just reading that, it's like, why? When Strufert had not returned home the next morning, her disappearance was reported to the sheriff's office. Within hours, search crews dispatched to search for her, albeit without success. On June 18th, at a party at defendant's house, so this is June 18th, so this is 4 days later. Defendant told Bill Hollum, who was sister's boyfriend and a trainee in law enforcement program, that he knew everything about the Strufert murder. He said that he and Guy Sullivan had been with 2 strangers that night, and that 2 strangers, Ralph and Neil, committed the murder while he and Sullivan watched. They had 2 witnesses? Later that evening, the defendant also told his father the story about the murder involving the 2 strangers. His father did not totally believe the defendant and told him to turn himself into the police. The defendant then called Guy Sullivan and went to his father and turned himself in between 2:30 and 3 a.m. Imagine turning yourself in at 2:30 a.m. What? Upon arriving at the police station, the defendant voluntarily told the police that he had information on Garen Strufert's disappearance. He told police that he and Guy Sullivan and met 2 strangers named Ralph and Neil at a bar in Grand Rapids, and after picking Strufert up, the 5 of them drove to a wooded area 30 miles south of town. The defendant said that he was standing about 15 feet away from the strangers when they shot it. By the way, this story gets more, this is not, just hang in there. Police asked the defendant if he was telling the truth and informed the defendant Sullivan was in the adjoining room telling police that the defendant had fired the shots at the victim. The defendant admitted that the part of his story was fabricated, and he asked to see Sullivan. When the defendant got the opportunity to do so, he asked Sullivan if he should tell the whole thing. When Sullivan indicated that he should, the defendant told police that most of the previous story was false. The defendant proceeded to recant his initial story and told the police the second story, in which he implicated himself and Sullivan in the murder. The defendant told police that he and Sullivan decided to pick up a woman and terrorize her. So now I think it's the real story. So I think what was happening is that he fabricated another 2 men being there. Okay. At the night when they saw Strufert leave the Perkins restaurant, the defendant said, "Let's go for it." When Sullivan pulled his car alongside her, the defendant got out of the car and told her to get in. She refused. The defendant put his hand on her shoulder, and Sullivan revealed a .25 caliber automatic pistol between his legs. She got into the car. Sullivan and the defendant drove to the wooded area the defendant had previously described, and the defendant confessed that both men S.'d her. Now, this is a much more believable story. I do like that the parole board called him out on it, were disgusted by him, and didn't fluff it. I thought they did a good job calling him out. Some of the board members were like, different stories. And when they decided that Strufert the idea that he can come up for parole in 5 years is still ridiculous. Like, there's no amount of programs you can do to teach empathy or make you not a risk. You need to die in prison. When they decided that she might tell police about the incident, the defendant said that he shot her in the back of the head with a 25 caliber pistol, and then after she fell, he fired a second shot in her throat with a 22. See, he wanted to say the 25, 20, which one's stronger? He says it's like so nonchalantly. It's just so insane. After the confession, the defendant agreed to take the sheriff to the place where he had buried the body. After doing so, they returned to the sheriff's office. The defendant was told that he was free to go, but he would be arrested soon. What? Really? The defendant was arrested shortly after leaving the police station. Why would they even let him go? I don't understand. After he was given Miranda warning, the defendant again confessed to Schubert's murder, providing details which matched his prior confession. The defendant once again reiterated that he and Sullivan followed her, forced her into the car, took her into the wooded area, essayed and shot her. Defendant admitted firing fatal shots, and he told police about his attempt to cover her up, including partially burying her body and throwing her handbag out of the highway. He even contemplated removing the gun slugs from the back of her head so they cannot be traced back to his weapons. The defendant said, "I'm admitting I'm guilty." When the police told him that Sullivan said the defendant forced Sullivan at gunpoint to perform these acts, the defendant disagreed, stating that they were in it 50-50. So I guess, it's one of the co-defendants saying, "Hey, he made me do it." And they're saying, "No, I didn't." At trial, the defendant recounted his earlier statements, indicating that he and Sullivan made up these stories in an attempt to protect Sullivan. The defendant claimed that he was willing to sacrifice his life to exonerate Sullivan. Wow, real champion. The defendant testified that he and Sullivan saw her leaving Perkins and drove up to her because Sullivan thought he knew her. She voluntarily got in the car and they proceeded to drive to the wooded area. During the trip, the defendant testified that Sullivan had a friendly conversation about school. The defendant claimed that although he slept only 3 hours in the 14 days preceding the murder, the ephedrine pill was taking caused him to be zonked out in the backseat. When they arrived at the wooded area, they made a fire. When the fire started dying out, the defendant went to get some more wood, and upon returning, he and Sullivan and Schubert were having intercourse. I'm sure that's exactly how it happened. I'm a little confused now what's going on. I mean, it's like story number 3, I think. The defendant left him alone after Sullivan and Schubert headed up to the trail. I think this is what he said at trial. While the defendant went to look for them upon reaching Sullivan, the defendant testified that she was lying dead on the ground, Sullivan holding the gun. The defendant said that Sullivan told him what happened. He agreed to his friend and therefore fired the second shot in her neck. On return trip to Grand Rapids, the defendant told Sullivan that he had SA'd. The defendant is the guy whose parole hearing we just saw. So this is the defendant's story. Defendant threw the handbag onto the highway, and during the trip, they concocted a funny story about 2 strangers, Ralph and Neil, and later developed another story which the defendant would admit, pointing a gun at Sullivan, forcing him to perform these acts. Although this later story best accomplished the defendant's supported goal of exonerating Sullivan, the defendant claimed that he did not tell police the story initially because he and Sullivan had not worked out all the details. Uh, what? Yeah, it's nothing else. I mean, I think the most simple story is the easiest. They kidnapped her, they essayed her, they killed her. And he wanted to, he was angry because he was angry. He was angry. He wanted to know what it would like to kill someone. He wanted to see which caliber would be more powerful. Let's give him 5 years so he can figure out empathy. What? When the victim is faceless, when they don't have a voice, which these proceedings do not give the victims voices, they don't put a face. This isn't that long ago. This happened in 1990, 1991. This would have been a second ago for the siblings of this girl, for the mother, for the father. they'd be suffering at the idea that this person can get a chance of parole. And now that they'd have to come back again, just say no. This is such an easy no. Just do your life. I don't know how legislation works in Minnesota, if they can legally do that, but it's like, it's when you just talk about it very simply, there's nothing that will fix it. The only thing that he might do is become better and sounding less of a sociopath, but I don't think he has it in to even accomplish that. And with that, I'll let you go.
Why did you not want the body destroyed?
Because when I shot Karn, something happened to me that night. When I shot the first shot, she went out, and I shot the second gun. It was extremely dark out. It suddenly went bright light. I could see bright light. Everything around me was lit up. I could see her pupils open up on her. I could feel her presence there. I could feel the aura, and then all of a sudden it went dark again. And I looked at him and said, and the first thing I said was, "What the hell did I just do?" I said, "Do you see that?" And he says, "What?" I said, "You didn't see that." He said, "Did you see what just happened?" He says, "Yeah, he shot her." I said, "No."